Hi, I'm Católica, and this is Mission to Change, the show where I hear from people who turn business into a force for good and learn about their journey to make it happen.
Why do you want to scale up? Try to answer this question and never forget, let's put your ego behind and focus on the end game.
In the third season of Mission to Change, we are focusing on social entrepreneurship. In the first episode, Bill Drayton told us everything about the origins of the concept and how the social entrepreneurship movement has grown over time. Today, in our second episode, we are exploring how social enterprises scale their impact. What does their life cycle look like, and how is it different from that of a commercial enterprise? To do this, I welcome two guests, Professor Filipe Santos.
Hello, I'm the Dean of Católica Business School in Lisbon, but more importantly, I'm a Professor of Entrepreneurship and Social Innovation, working with social entrepreneurs, with social innovators, helping them design their innovative solutions to solve endemic problems in society and helping them scale the impact of their solutions, which is my passion.
And Alexandra Machado, a seasoned social entrepreneur who is successfully scaling the impact of her venture.
I'm Alexandra Machado. I'm founder and CEO of Girl Move Academy. We are empowering a new generation of female changemakers in Mozambique.
Previously, Bill Drayton spoke about the deep how-to map that social entrepreneurs have. This is referring to the strong drive and understanding of social issues that guides social entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into solutions. However, sometimes, no matter how strong the drive and how deep the understanding, some ideas will take off, while some solution will never be implemented. To understand how and why a social enterprise succeeds in scaling its impact, we must first understand their life cycle and the critical steps that are required to move from one stage to the next. So let's ask the expert, Filipe, how this works.
Typically, there's the initial stage, which is the entrepreneurial stage, where the social entrepreneur identifies a problem in society, typically neglected, tries to develop a solution to that problem, tries different things, engages with the communities, engages with potential partners, creates, recreates, destroys, reinvents. And it's a very exciting, engaging moment. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of passion at that moment. Until you find the right combination of elements with an innovative idea that creates a new approach. So that's stage one. And then there is the second stage, which typically takes a couple of years, of fine-tuning the elements of the solution in two important dimensions. One is the economic dimension. How do I cover the costs of my solution? And that all entrepreneurs have to do. But there's an additional dimension that only social entrepreneurs do, which is the impact dimension. Is my solution changing lives? In what dimension is it improving? Are there spillovers that go from my beneficiaries to people in the community? And so it's a difficult stage because some of the initial energy has dissipated. It's not so novel anymore. So that's the second stage. And once you go through that second stage successfully, you have a social innovation, which is a solution that proves to be effective in generating impact at cost. And then your challenge is to scale. Is to say, okay, how can I take this social innovation that I've tried at small scale in this community, in this city or in this neighborhood, how can I take this to everyone, everywhere? That's the scaling stage. And that's a challenging stage because you need to hire a bigger team. You need to start delegating as an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of, you need to codify all that you do so that other people can do it for you without the initial inspiration. So that's third stage, involves a lot of management, less entrepreneurship and more business management and practice without losing the mission. So that's the third stage. And then the fourth stage, it's a very important stage because when you are a social entrepreneur, you are not trying to grow an organization to become powerful in the market. You are trying to take your solution to everyone, everywhere, even if your organization stays smaller. And sometimes you need to give away your solution to others to imitate. Sometimes you need to shape public policy so that your insight gets embedded into public policy. Sometimes you need to franchise and license your model for others to develop. So there are different mechanisms for disseminating your idea. And in that fourth stage, you typically step back from your organization and say, as a change maker and evangelist for the whole ecosystem, how should I take my social innovation further and longer? So those are the four stages: the entrepreneurial one, the modeling one, the scaling one, and the dissemination one. And they all go, and this process takes about 10 to 15 years to get to completion.
So you mentioned that one of the difference between classic entrepreneur and social entrepreneur is the fact that not only they need to see how they become financially viable in a sustainable manner, but they also need to take into account their impact and keep that mission at the center of what they do. Are there other differences between social entrepreneurs and classic entrepreneurs from what you've seen and experienced?
That there are. I would say that the first and third stage I mentioned, the entrepreneurial stage, is actually very similar, because entrepreneurs, typically even commercial entrepreneurs, are solving problems in society.
Exactly.
The second stage is indeed different, because when you have two dimensions to manage, you need to manage the impact and the economic model. And they sometimes are not convergent. Sometimes when you want to do more services to support your beneficiaries, you add extra costs. And since they cannot pay for the service, then you have a deficit that you need to fill in some way. Then how do you do it? Do you have a partnership? Do you have philanthropy? So that stage is actually very different between social entrepreneurs and commercial entrepreneurs. The third stage, which is the scaling one, I find more similarities, because it's about managing, it's about processes, it's about delegating, it's about setting a vision, aligning people. Then the fourth stage is again very different, because the fourth stage, I would say, if the second is more challenging because you have two dimensions, the fourth is more interesting, because strategically you have different ways of scaling your impact, and you can choose and mix and match models. You can influence public policy, you can license the model, you can continue growing organically in some geographies. So you have a multiplicity of options to grow, and that makes it very interesting.
The rate of failure or quitting for entrepreneurs is quite high. Do we have the same rate of success with social entrepreneurs, or are they more passionate, more driven, and stick with it longer?
I think they tend to be more resilient than commercial entrepreneurs. So there are no accurate statistics in terms of rates of failure. But from my observations with many commercial entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, I feel that they tend to be more resilient and fail less than commercial entrepreneurs, and have more intrinsic motivation. On the other hand, they also tend to stay small and scale less than commercial entrepreneurs, because it's more difficult to engage in the scaling process.
To illustrate how this works in practice, Filipe introduced us to Alexandra Machado, the CEO of Girl Move, empowering young women in Mozambique to become leaders and change makers. Alexandra left a 25-year career in the corporate sector to found Girl Move. It was an experience through the foundation of her last employer, Nike, that brought this opportunity to Alexandra.
There's a moment in life that we see is like, if life ends today, what really is the impact that you wanna live? So I have so much experience in terms of leading companies, making money, and it's like, and what I really see myself working till reaching the 90s. So it's like, what is the impact that I'm going with these experiences? And the fact Nike has a foundation, this Girl Effect Foundation, that makes advocacy about the importance of girls' education to fight against poverty. So I really decided to break my career in Nike. I joined with a friend of mine, which is co-founded, Lisa Morales, is co-founded of Girl Move. And we decided that we are going to promote Leadership Academy in a developing country.
Girl Move aims to help young girls in Mozambique achieve their full potential. The organization supports primary school girls in different ways. They offer them a full-year academic program. They provide mentorship opportunities with female university students. They give them access to trainings from international organizations. In combining these different approaches and scaling them at the country level, Girl Move brings meaningful results, impacting the lives of these young girls as well as the country's economy.
One of the consistent and important results that we have is that the girls that work with us, 1,200 girls per year at work, 90% of these girls goes from primary to secondary, which is very impressive because as national statistics, only 30%. So it means that we move from 30% national statistic to 90. And another number is the child maternity. You know that in the country, there's 50% of the girls have already one child. In our program, we have 0% child maternity. Means that this is really very impactful because in the end, girls are really inspired and also with their parents in their communities that the right path to go is really to continue study. That's one level of impact, okay? The other level, we can forecast the income that these girls will going to have in the future if just because of the fact that they continue studies, you know, that there are studies that one more year of education means more than 25% income. And we know that this income, girls or women, usually 90% of this income invest in their family. So we already have touched more than 5,000 young vulnerable girls. There's a study that we have done also with Católica that estimates the impact in society. We can see that we are promoting more than 50 billion and with impact in GDP in society. So that's one side. The other side that is also very important is what it's about leaders. So we have today more than 200 young leaders already very well prepared. The outcome in the end of the program is very clear. More than 80% of the girls get a job, get a dream job.
Listening to Alexandra, what I found impressive is not only the number of girls enrolled in the program every year, but also the broader impact on the rest of society. So how can social entrepreneurs measure their full impact, also including that kind of ripple effect?
All of us in what we do can identify clearly our outputs, the number of people that we support, the number of sessions, and that's easy to identify. What is more difficult is then to identify what are the key outcomes that we want to achieve, and they should be measurable, they should be important in terms of their consequences, and in this case is number of girls that transition from primary to secondary, what's that percentage, the not having incidents of child maternity at that early stage in their lives, which will create the cycle of poverty. So those are two examples of outcomes. But why we choose them? Because there is a theory of change underlying our solution that informs what we do and what we want to achieve. And we know that according to that theory of change, that articulation, that if we maintain girls in school and if we postpone these child maternity, we know that we will have more well-educated women in the generation, which will have a positive economic and social impact in the country.
Compared to a classic commercial enterprise, increasing impact is key in the life cycle of a social enterprise. So, is scaling the size of a social enterprise always the right thing to do? And if not, just how does one scale impact?
I would say that rarely is the objective of the social entrepreneur to really grow very large and reach everyone by themselves directly. There's only a few exceptions, which is when you have a fully digital service that's based on the contributions of the members of the community and is totally open. Then you can ambition to scale globally. That's, for example, Wikipedia. You create a digital platform and it's people who contribute their knowledge, it's people that read the knowledge, and so you can reach billions of users and you really grow. Typically, in the social impact sector, you have a service, you need to get a product to people's hands or a service, and it's impossible for an organization like Remove to reach 1 million girls in Mozambique. Yet there are 1 million girls that need a service like this. They are so small that no one pays attention to them, no one believes in what they're doing. Once they grow to a minimum scale where they become the reference model, where they say, no, every year we are able to train 1,200 of these younger girls with these mentoring circles, see the outcome that we are getting, our solution really works at scale. Now you have a case to take, for example, to policymakers in the Ministry of Education and say, do you want to replicate some elements of these sisterhood circles in these safe spaces in your schools and put this into the curriculum? And if you find a good way of doing so, in 1 or 2 years, you can have a basic version of the solution happening for 1 million girls. And so that's when you scale, you don't need to scale your full solution to everywhere yourself. You need to find the right partners to scale the essence of what works.
Yeah, that's clear. And in that case, so Alexandra clearly also goes with the government, as a partnership to scale that impact. Could there have been other strategies?
Sometimes the right partner is at the government, local or central. Sometimes it's a large company. Some social entrepreneurs say, I'm going to deploy my service through all of the branches of this large multinational company, and I'll be in 50 countries in 5 years. And so sometimes a large corporate is the right partner for scale. Sometimes could be a large charity or NGO that is present in many countries that adopts your practice and deploys it. So it's kind of a portfolio approach, and then you have to just choose your focus and which things you want to do to really take the essence of your solution to everyone. And there's some things that you can do at a certain stage that you cannot do before. If Alexandra 5 years ago had gone to the government with this proposal, they would laugh at her. Who are you to propose us this? But in the meanwhile, she has proven that her program works for 5 years and more. She has clear outcome metrics. She has won the UNESCO award for women in education, the best women in education solution in the world. And this legitimacy, this reputation that she brings allows her to be an influential voice in women in education, women empowerment in Mozambique, but also beyond Mozambique. So the social entrepreneur goes from a little entrepreneur having an idea to becoming the manager of a solution that needs to scale, to then becoming an evangelist, a champion for a cause with the credibility associated with it, and being a voice that influences CEOs of companies, policymakers and policy leaders. And that's why and how social innovators can change the world. Now we are moving to a newer world and a better world where these ecosystem and these social entrepreneurs are getting more integrated into both business and policy, because governments have a lot of challenges they don't know how to deal with. And some of these ideas are helping at sometimes lower cost, much more effective approaches. And companies really want to embed social impact in their business. They don't know how to do it. And sometimes the most effective way to do it is to integrate the solution of a social entrepreneur into their value chain and deploy it in all the markets that they're in. So it's very strategic now for social entrepreneurs to be very aware of the context in which they operate. And at the same time, being clear, no, my focus is now Mozambique, is not like the whole world, because then I'll get distracted with too many opportunities that I don't know how to then capture or pursue. But if it's Mozambique, what are the levers of influence in Mozambique and how can I deploy them to take my solution wider and have more impact? And clearly, the Ministry of Education, in this case, it's a channel.
What are you most excited about when you look to the future in terms of growing your impact?
Well, I think that we still have a lot to do in terms of ending the game, and it's very exciting, this opportunity, especially because we are now in a position that it's not necessarily to be successful. It's not about Girl Move. It's about the ecosystem. So it's like I am leading a consortium with different players, and I'm a part of. But sometimes meaning that I have to make a trade-off and I let the other partner. And if you really want to win the game, if you really want to be focused, we really have to step behind of, it's not about me, it's not about my organization, it's not about my beautiful solution, it's about how my solution interacts with the others in order to end the game. So it's like I'm really excited in this next journey that is gonna and starting now.
Filipe, why did you pick Girls Move as the example when I suggested we do that episode together as a good case to exemplify your theory about scaling the impact of social entrepreneurship?
They really have a very interesting strategic opportunity set that they need to pursue. And sometimes the challenge at this stage is not to lose your focus, not to lose the ability to look at what is my actual goal that I want to deliver on and how these different opportunities will build onto the goal. Because sometimes people get lost at this stage with too many things, they get unfocused, and then they don't achieve anything. So the fact that you have the clarity of your mission at the same time that you leverage the opportunities is a great, interesting moment for any social entrepreneur, and they are really at an interesting stage of development.
If I am, let's say I'm a social entrepreneur and I'm in that stage where I'm starting to scale, I found my social innovation and I'm about to start to embark on the scaling part, which is the most complex one for me. What would be your key recommendation for me?
If you really want to scale, you need someone that's very good on the management side and someone that's very good on the scaling process, on the innovation side. So you need to reinforce the team, because as a social entrepreneur, you cannot do everything alone. If you need to start delegating. So you need really to have either a very strong founding team with different competencies, or to attract at this stage some very good people, especially experts in management, because typically the social entrepreneur is very good at the entrepreneurial, innovative creativity stage. They can transition naturally to the evangelist stage where they are a champion of the ecosystem. They sometimes have more difficulty in the management stage, in the codification, in processes, in standardizing. So reinforce the team with one or two more people that are fully dedicated and are complementary to you to really embark on the next challenges.
Well, I think that is like very focus on the end game. Try to understand, why do you want to scale up? Try to answer this question, and never forget, it's not about you. It's not about your solution. Put your ego behind and focus on the end game.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission to Change, a podcast by the INSEAD Hoffman Global Institute for Business and Society in collaboration with Intent. If you liked what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe to the show. Our podcast was created and produced by Human Humans. Original sound, music, and mixing by Palomino. Coordination, research, and script editing by Isabel Stark. You can find me on LinkedIn at Católica, where you can leave me a message about what you liked and what you learned.